In the late 1800s, D.L. Moody left his mark on the town, establishing schools, camps, and revivals along with other great preachers of the time. His Chicago home had been burned in the fire of 1871. His mission in England kept him occupied for 4 years, and when he returned to America, he was still without a home. Under these circumstances, he went to Northfield to see his mother, and decided to make it his permanent home in order to be near to her. He purchased an old homestead within a stone throw of his birthplace. As the years went by, Mr. Moody transferred the village into a Mecca by establishing schools, conferences, and other enterprises, of which only a brief mention can now be made. Northfield Seminary for Young Women, Mount Hermon School for Young Men, the first General Conference for Christian Workers. The list goes on and on. During the Second Young Women's Conference in July of 1901, there were many speakers, including Dr. and Mrs. J. Howard Taylor of China Inland Missions, Reverend G. Campbell Morgan of London, England, Mr. Robert E. Spear of New York, Reverend C. I. Schofield of Northfield, Mass., and the list continues. A.T. Pierson was an ordained Presbyterian preacher from New York. He was born in 1837 and the same year as James Spurgeon, D.L. Moody, and John Wanamaker. As A.T. Pierson was finishing the Crisis of Missions in July 1886, he received an urgent telegram from the evangelist Dwight L. Moody requesting that he come to Northfield, Massachusetts to help out with the summer Bible school Moody was holding for the leaders of the YMCA. 250 young men from 90 colleges had traveled to Northfield for a month-long Bible conference. Seeing the telegram as a call from God, Pierson's family packed up and left Philadelphia. During the summer of 1887, the Pierson family returned to the beautiful Northfield for Arthur to speak at D.L. Moody's Summer School for College Students. The Moody and Pierson families grew even closer as the Moody's son, William, and Pierson's son, Delavan, became good friends. Arthur T. Pierson purchased his home in Northfield from John C. Bangs in August 19th of 1890. He would later turn the property over to his children after his passing. Mr. Moody left Northfield November 8, 1899, for his last evangelistic campaign in Kansas City, Missouri. Neither he nor his friends realized the weakened condition of his heart, which had been irregular for years, and which broke under strain on Thursday, November 16th. He reached home on the 19th and was confined to the house until the end came on December 22nd. His mortal remains were laid to rest on Round Top. The simple headstone bears the inscription, February 5th, 1837 to December 22nd, 1899. He that doth the will of God abideth forever. 1 John chapter 2, verse 17. Louise was born in Plainfield, New Jersey, on December 2, 1892. She died in her home there on June 12, 1913, living only to the age of 21. Louise was always with her father and mother at Northfield at the summer Bible conferences, staying all the way through to the Young Ladies' Conference. Her Bible is full of Northfield mementos. Louise graduated high school in the spring of 1910 and would go to the conferences in Northfield that summer. She would attend Smith College in the fall. Her last conference in Northfield was the year of 1911. The following year, she would spend most of her time in the hospital in Plainfield and Gaylord Farm Sanatorium in Wallingford, Connecticut. In December of 1912, she had 3 Christmas trees sent to her, one of which was from Northfield. Just a little while before the calling home of Louise Andrews, the committee of the Young Women's Conference at Northfield had voted to have a girls' camp in Northfield to be run as a holiday home for girls needing rest of body and mind. When the news of Louise's homegoing came to the committee, it was decided to name the camp after her. The first camping season was full without any advertising. Most of the counselors who came to help were personal friends of Louise. They worked hard to furnish the large bungalow in a way that would have met her approval. A large photograph of Louise hangs in the living room, which is still there to this day. The Louise Andrews Camp for Girls and Young Women was located on a hill in the Pine Woods, commanding an extensive view of the Connecticut Valley. It was managed by the Young Women's Conference Committee and was limited to young women invited or recommended by the committee. The Young Women's Conference Committee formed into the Northfield League. The fall of October 29th, 1932, they purchased the property for $1. The deed was given to Northfield League by Delavan L. Pearson, who was the trustee under the will of his father, Arthur T. Pearson. July 28th of 1938, the Northfield League sold the property to the Salvation Army of Massachusetts. The Salvation Army added to the camp by constructing many of the buildings as well as creating a ball field and installing a swimming pool. The Salvation Army operated the youth camp until 1956. The grounds then went unused until 1961, when the Northfield Bible Conference purchased the property to use as a camp focused on the ministry of reaching youth for the Lord. In 1961, 7 pastors banded together to begin Camp Northfield. They purchased the land from the Salvation Army for $20,000. The need was for a quality program to meet high standards of biblical teachings for the independent Baptist churches of New England. The leadership and staff of Northfield Bible Conference continues to share the message of salvation to the lost and provide a place of retreat for believers who need to focus on our almighty Savior, Jesus Christ. Since D.L. Moody came back to Northfield in 1875, countless decisions have been made for the Lord, reminding us that God continues to have His hand over the little town of Northfield.